Pnei Tzuna Not Begidusho Toira Hakidoisho Ahai Toira Toira Hakidoisho Ischaneni Ischaneni Yoy Vivakosho Pnei Tzuna Not Begidusho Toira Hakidoisho Ashiro, Ashiro, Hazoi, Lamdo es Bnei Israel. Toira, Toira, Hakidoisho, Ischaneni, Ischaneni, Yoy Vivakosho.
Good Erev Yontiv. That music was by Avram Tsukie, a song that he wrote specifically for Shavuos last year of COVID. It was only being released now. You can find it on the lakewoodscoop.com. I am a little bit subjective because my son Shmuel Ezra didn't mix the music, so but it's a beautiful song. Welcome all to Sounds Like Shavuos 5781. I'd like to just start with a quick story. Didn't quite happen this way, but could have happened. Back in the 60s, I was sitting around the Thanksgiving table with my family, and my father was explaining the importance of Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, we're in America, we'll celebrate Thanksgiving. So my brother, my older brother, asked him, does this mean we're going to celebrate all civil holidays, all civic days that are on the calendar? For example, Mother's Day. My father said, no, b'shum panim v'oifen, no Mother's Day. A Yid has to know every day and think of his mother and everything that she did for him. So then I turned around and asked, what about Father's Day? Wouldn't it be nice to have one day a year to recognize the efforts of a father and a husband and everything they do for the family? And my father thought for a moment and said, you know what, Taka, maybe that's a good idea. Shavuos always falls out between Father's Day and Mother's Day. Now, all the Yom Tovim, we know exactly what they're for. Shavuos, there's no specific yontif. But because we all know that Barin and Lachem, I translate Lachem as making up your pshat. What's the meaning of Shavuos? But Baruch Hashem, I actually heard it from the Rav previously that it's a day we celebrate Torah Shebaal Peh, and not only Torah Shebaal Peh, but the Rabbanim. We all know who the Noisen Torah is, but on a daily basis, who are the Noisen Torah? Are the Magidei Shiurim that I listen to every day, Yossi Simon, Reb Daniel Finkel, and of course the Rav Shlita. Rav Ram Weisbrod would have been on the program, but he's in Eretz Yisrael. So Reb Yossi, welcome. I know that's not the introduction you would have given yourself, but I'm thrilled to be able to do it and co-host this program in honor of the Torah Shebaal Peh and all the Magidei Shiurim and all our Father's Day, if you will. Now, I know that, as everybody knows, that actually that Yossi enjoys politics. And we're going to segue. At this point, we really wanted to discuss a little bit of what's going on in the city and being careful, but we weren't able to get Dovid Stein or anybody from Gesher to discuss specifics. But I understand, Yossi, that it is on high alert from what you've heard. Unmute.
We've all heard that there's some concern in the community because of the Muslim supporters and the Palestinian supporters that think that it's appropriate to beat up Eden, which is an old anti-Semitic custom. But I don't know if there's really cause to be concerned to walk down the street. For the most part, I think these people are cowards and they're happy just screaming out their car windows some not nice things as they run away like an escaping rat. So I don't know if there's anything to worry about, but I'm not qualified to make any security assessments.
Okay, but the program is going ahead. We are having all night SLShavuos. By the way, we didn't have Shavuos, unfortunately, in Shul last year. What's your few memories that you have from Shavuos in the Aguda, aside from the styrofoam coffee cups? I don't know if the feintuchs are on, but go ahead. There's a hint.
Well, first of all, the one thing that always stands out in my mind about the Aguda is the beautiful flowers that I believe that Shlomi Goldreich arranges with Shlomi Feintuch. There's beautiful flowers all along the tables.
Shlomi Feintuch, not Shlomi Goldreich.
Shlomi Goldreich brought Shlomi Feintuch to Toronto. You were the attraction. And those flowers always make the Yom Tov so beautiful, especially when someone near you by mistake knocks over a vase near you, then you really have the Ein Mayim El Torah. But it's something that always stands out in my mind. Wherever you are, you always have a beautiful flower to remind us of Har Sinai. And that's what the BSIMCHA is like. It's like Har Sinai. It's everyone coming to enjoy and to take part in learning Torah. And there's a kol Torah in the BSIMCHA all night, and Shmuel's there to make sure that everyone is drinking cold drinks to keep them awake and to keep them entertained. And there's just a beautiful kol Torah, and there's the different groups. Rabbi Philip with his Chabura has a beautiful group with every type of nash. It was mamish by them it's like the Yam Suf as well, because you have all the different nash growing off the walls as they're learning Torah. And in every winkel, and the Rav saying this year, and Reb Daniel saying this year, it's beautiful. It's really like a mixture of pre-shavuos and BSIMCHA together with Maimon Har Sinai. I miss it. I'm very excited for tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to play a clip from Reb Usher Sinclair, and then we're going, Yossi, you're going to introduce Reb Daniel Finkel to make sure that he's on. I picked this because it brings us again a little bit different dimension to think about Shavuos, but Yossi, but I had you in mind.
In 2016, after much discussion, Oxford Dictionaries elected the word post-truth word of the year. Post-truth is an adjective defined as relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. We live in a post-truth world, a world that has relegated truth to second place behind belief, emotion, and respect. Implicit in the word post-truth is the belief that there's something beyond the truth, that truth is not something ultimate and unbending. There's my truth and there's your truth. And hey, even though my truth may contradict your truth completely, well, no big deal, because my truth is true for me and your truth is true for you, meaning there's no truth. Now, in the absence of a belief in absolute truth, respect has become the ruling virtue. An interesting linguistic metamorphosis in our post-truth world is the word narrative. Now, narrative used to mean a story. Now it has a new usage. A narrative is your version of the truth. For example, there's an Israeli narrative, a Palestinian narrative, there's a white narrative, a black narrative, we have a male narrative, a female narrative, and you have to respect my narrative because it's just as valid as yours. Implicitly, the use of the word narrative in this way denies the existence of a third possibility, the truth. What a triumph for the spin doctors. Oh, and there's another brave new word, spin doctors. Translation, liars. Now take the following nouns. They all want to sound truth, but they all mean lies. Here we go. Poetic truth, parallel truth, nuanced truth, imaginative truth, virtual truth, alternative reality, strategic misrepresentations, creative enhancement, non-full disclosure, selective disclosure, augmented reality, nearly true, almost true, counterfactual statements, fact-based information. And present-day synonyms for the word to lie include to enrich the truth, to enhance the truth, to embroider the truth, to massage the truth. Love that one. To tell more than the truth, to bend the truth, to soften the truth, to shade the truth, to shave the truth, to make things clearer than the truth, to be lenient with honesty. Wonderful. More than anything, the festival of Shavuot celebrates the belief that there's something called truth, absolute truth, and that truth was revealed to the Jewish people 3,323 years ago. The Hebrew word for truth is emet. Emet is a three-letter word consisting of the first, the last, and the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The word emet itself hints that truth is inflexible, unmalleable. It's not my truth, your truth. It's either true or false from the beginning through the middle to the end. The festival of Shavuot is the Jewish people's yearly celebration of belief in God, belief in the revelation of His will, and belief that there's something more compelling in this world than respect. It's called the truth.
Thank you. Something to think about, especially in light of what's going on in the world today, and as we wait for the world to acknowledge truth, and this could be hopefully their last stand. Speaking of which, I failed to mention today's sponsor, Dovid and Chana Kleiner, in honor of Sheila Grubner, Shulamis Bas Dovid. We just passed the 11th month since her patira. Her neshama should have an aliyah. Was on Lamed ER. Yossi, would you like to introduce, please, Reb Daniel?
Sure. When I introduce such a choshev Eid like Reb Daniel, every word I say is one less moment for Reb Daniel to speak. So I really have to measure my words. Reb Daniel is not just speaking for himself. Reb Daniel represents the most beautiful shiur of the leaders of our community, and he speaks for everybody. So we have to have a tremendous amount of respect for Reb Daniel when he speaks, not only because what an Adam Gadol is himself, but because of the shear that he represents. And of course, when it comes to Daf Yomi, there's no one who represents Daf Yomi more than Reb Daniel Finkel, whose Rosh Tevis is Daf, is the Daf. So without any further ado, Reb Daniel.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Kiva and Reb Yossi. I was given a time slot of 5 to 10 minutes, and to give all the proper thanks to everyone, Rabbi Kiva, Akiva, Yossi. It would take way longer than that. So, Yossi, your Rosh Tevis, I don't know what I didn't think about it, but I will just try to go straight to what I've prepared to say. The Rav spoke yesterday in Shul about the connection between Parshas Bamidbar always falling out before Shavuos. I'd like to elaborate a bit on that concept. And furthermore, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky is Moira in the census that was conducted on Rosh Chodesh Iyar, which was the second month. That census is quite different from the first and second census that was counted by Yetzias Mitzrayim and 6-7 months earlier after Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Yaakov says, this census is not just a census of the entire Klal Yisrael as one unit. Each shevet has their own degel, their own significance, their own identity, and each shevet is part of a larger, the four degolim, a larger compartment, a larger achdus with two other shvatim on each side. Rabbi Yaakov asks, doesn't that cause divisiveness? Isn't that counterintuitive to unity, what the census is supposed to represent? And if it is so important, why by this census and not the first and the second by Yetzias Mitzrayim? Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says that Soviv leMishkan Yachanu, at this point, when the Mishkan was erected, and there was a central point for Klal Yisrael for Torah Tefillah, every Yid could have his own identity. Every shevet could have what they stand for with their own degel. It will not be a barrier to the common unity, because Klal Yisrael has one calling, Soviv leMishkan Yachanu. We're all focused on the Mishkan Ha'edus, which was the source of Torah through the Kruvim to Moshe Rabbeinu. It was the Mekor for Karbonos, which is B'mokem Tefillah. And once you have that higher calling that unites and bonds every single Yid, the individual characteristics of Kishem, She'em, Pratzifeim, Shoven, Kach, their deis aren't Shoven, is not at all a barrier. If anything, it complements each other, because we're all motivated by Soviv leMishkan Yachanu. Therefore, the first and second census, says Rabbi Yaakov, it wasn't yet fit to have the golem. They didn't have a central focus yet. They didn't have a merkaz where they could put their energy and unite. Then it would have been with their differences. But once they had that central focus, the differences didn't matter. They complemented each other. They did not create a barrier for Klal Yisrael to unite. And so we find the same concept by Matan Torah, Vayichan Shom Yisrael Neged Ahor. There was a common calling. Klal Yisrael was answering to something higher. So the differences and the nuances and the de'eseyon that aren't Shavis didn't create any separation. They were all united for the higher calling. And the same we find by the Kabbalah Torah of Purim, Lech Knois Kol HaYehudim Mina V'ad Zoken. Everyone participated. All the differences didn't matter anymore. They all responded to a Dovid Shebekadusha, to something more meaningful that transcends any of the personal deis that one may have. And that's why Rabbi Yaakov says, And he says, "V'nochainhu," that on this parsha in Bamidbar, after the Mishkan or Abies was erected, and Klal Yisrael could be soviv leMishkan yachanu, then and only then can there be the golem. And not only are the golem not a barrier, they complement each other. Everyone contributes differently to the beautiful symphony of what it is, Klal Yisrael, to achieve a higher calling. Rabbi say, I certainly am proud, and we could all be proud of being part of a shul that is a merkaz bein for Torah, bein for tefillah. I remember when, after I got married, which goes back, I don't remember if I remembered my proper anniversary, so I'm not going to say how many years, but at least 30 years, 31 years ago, I called my father after spending a few Shabbosim in the Aguda, and I said, Abba, I don't think there's a shul in New York that really could boast 3 generations davening in one minyan. You had the back right table that had all the Nesheres HaPleit that were there, and they had their saying that we're not Shavuos. Believe me, they had their saying that we're not Shavuos. We all know that. But they all united, and they were the inspiration way, way before I came to Toronto to establish the Aguda and the foundations that the Aguda was based on. And the next generation carried on, and 3 generations davened together in unity. There were differences, but the higher calling united us all, Torah and Tefillah, led by the Choshev Rav b'Mokem Echad. I found out today that this program was dedicated to my Zeicha Nishmas, my dear Shviga, whose Yortzeit Akiva, if you may allow me to correct, is Lamed Sivan, which is coming up the end of this month, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. And I remember how proud she was to be a member of the Aguda. And I remember in the beginning of Corona, when she was unable to go to shul, to the Aguda, how bothered, she was about that. Rabbi said, we have what to be thankful for. We have members that are leaving, but they could take with them the pride and the knowledge to know, Meken Stolzen, that they were part of such an Aguda Echos. Tochel Shana B'Bechoi, the Rav also spoke, the Teichacha comes out a week before. The bracha comes, Rabbi say, from this, from being Mekabel, each one to their own. I know there are Chavruses and Aguda now that took on new Sidorim. There's much more time available now. Much more time. We could use it for good things. Maybe it's part of the master plan. Who knows? People took Sidorim and Halacha. Mashalib Chachafetz. Maybe others want to be kind of Chumash. Maybe others want to be kind of Mishnayis. Maybe they want to learn the Daf 2 times or 3 times, whatever it may be. Tochel Shana B'Bechoi. By reinaugurating our commitment to Soviv LeMishkan Yachanu, all our differences, like the Mishnah in Dovid says, Torah is Megadaltoi Umeramtoi Al Kol HaMaisim, will uplift us all to the common calling. And Be'ezus Hashem, together by Aguda Echos, we should be Zoicha Taka to Tochel Shana B'Bechoi, and we should all be Zoicha Mietz Hashem in this coming Tkufa to be Makabel Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Meher V'Yameinu.
Shkoyach.
Oh, yeah. It's beautiful.
I'm sorry if I went over time.
No. So we'll take it off the next time that I have to ask you to speak. Shkoyach Reb Daniel, the words were succinct and emes, and they resonate. It's appreciative very much how you blended the past with the present and with the future as well. Thank you. I had in mind to actually show you a short clip. I usually don't post WhatsApp videos, but there's a short clip about how approximately 30 handymen got together and rebuilt the shul in Lud. I know the Rav is going to come on and he urges us to continue. It seems that Midas Hadin is hitting us very hard continuously in light of what happened again, but the Rav somehow always finds a way, especially after what happened, Miron, that we must continue and focus forward. So I could just tell you that the shul in Lod has been rebuilt. This time I'll ask Rabbi Lowy to start with Tehillim and then share some words.
Maskil Dovid, Yosai, Amaras Vila, Kaili Aladina Yazak, Kaili Aladina Yazchanan, Eshrak Lefanav Sichi, Sirasi Lefanav Agid, Isate Vilkatu Daten Sivasi, Baruchzo Aleich Tam Lefachli, Habej Jaminu Rei Veili Makir, Avadmanois Mimani Ein Doirish Nafshi, Zakti Lecha, Adonai Matat Machsichalki Be'ezachayim, Akshiv Alinosi Kedoi Simiyoid, Atzlei Meroid Afai, Come to Mimani. Haitzim Masgan Abjoides Shemecha, Viachtiru Tzadikim, Sigma Ilalai. Shir Hamalois, Nemamakim, Gasicha Adonai, Adonai Shema Bekoili. Yanazak Shuba is the called Dachanonai. Mavaina is the Shmaya. Adonai Miyamaid. Kim Chaslicham. The man Tivarei. Visa Adonai Kips on Abshi. The Dwara Yachalti. Abshadinoi Mishamim Labaiker. Shamim Labaiker. Yachel Israel Adonai Kimanai Chasad. Vadwe Maifidos. Vayivdes Israel. Mikael, Aveira Chas Vsholoem, Esein Eloharim Ayin Yobayazri, Ezim Adonai Yosei Shemaim Varetz, Al Yitei Lamoid Raglecha, Al Yonum Shemrecha, Hinei Leyonim V'lo Yishon, Shomer Yisrael, Adonai Shemrecha, Adonai Tzilcha Yadim Necha, Yoim Hashemesh Lo Yakeka, Yorayach V'loila, Adonai Shmachim Kol Yishmas Nafshecha, Adonai Yishmas Eisla V'yacha, Meyatom, V'yad Oilam, Acheinu Kol Beis Yisrael, Anisun V'tzoram Shivayim Nimbeim B'yam 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 Amokim Merachem Aleim, V'yitzim V'tzor L'Rvachim V'Elohim Meshibit L'Gulam, Hashem Galos Man Kori V'noim Aramei, Mishibech Avseinu, Avram Yitzhak Moshe Amedom Shloimei, V'seinu Sarif Kerach V'Lei V'Arech V'Rapeh Eschacholim, V'Meron V'Cholim Eretz Yisrael, Avushalom V'Spam V'Avrei V'Schazek Kosh Baruch Hu, Marachim Aleim, L'Achlimam V'Rapoisam, L'Achzikom Yachyoisam, Yishach Lehem, Meheiro Refu Shalema, Shvaim L'Cholim V'Reim, L'Cholim V'Reim, So Shvois V'Fuz Nefshvusakov, Hashem Galos Man Kori V'Noim Amen. We're here at Erev Yontif, the Yontif of Shavuos. It's the only Yontif that doesn't say in the Torah which is the date of the Yontif. It's 50 days after we start counting, but it doesn't say the old Yom Tovim have a special date. Here it doesn't have the date for the Yontif. And also it's the only Yontif that doesn't have a special mitzvah. We don't know what the mitzvah of for this Yontif is. We know, but we've just, we just have the Daniel and Yossi and Akiva, part of the Messiah Torah, and we just learned Pirkei Avos, Ma'ishkev Torah, Messiah, Messiah, Yeshua, and we know that everything is a chelik of the Messiah Torah. Those are now giving over Torah. It's all a chelik of the long chain. I remember when my Rebbe Reb Giftis took over when a Matel was nifter, and he became Rosh Yeshiva together with Reb Baruch. He got up and he spoke about the Shalshelis HaTorah. He went over from the yeshivas from Bedisa and the Banas Aveira and went over, and everything is a continuation of the Matan Torah. Everyone saying Torah now is really a chelik of Moshe Rabbeinu's Mesorah HaTorah. Moshe Kibbel Torah Mesirah, and then Mesorah HaTorah. It's all chelik when Reb Daniel and Reb Yosy and Reb Avram and anyone is giving a shiur, it's all a chelik of the Messiah Torah. And it's so beautiful how Zoom is a chelik of this Messiah Torah that we have. And so when we see what's the Indian, we know we just spoke about the parsha, the golem, the center point of the golem, the soich, the center was the Mishkan. The center of the Mishkan was the Aron. The center of the Aron was Torah. Everything was around Torah. Klal Yisrael without Torah is nothing. Torah is what makes us. When the Rebbe Shem gave Torah, it says the Gemara brings down the whole world was shaking. And when the Torah was given, and the Umas Oilam thought maybe the Rebbe Shem was coming to destroy the world, and Bilam said no. What you're hearing is the purpose of the world. You're hearing Torah. Torah is what everything is all about. Torah is the whole life is only without Torah. There's no purpose of the world. The Rebbe Shem made a Tanai with the Bria. The Rebbe Shem made a Tanai with the Bria that Torah will be given. Without Torah, the world, the Torah will turn. The world will turn back to Toiv Avaya. Torah is the only purpose of the Bria. But at the same time, with Torah, Chazal say Har Sinai, Sinah Yard Olam, the Sinah that we have, the Sinah the Goyim have to Yidden. What's going on in Eretz Yisrael, the hatred of the Goyim, even the Goyim who live in Eretz Yisrael, the Halacha Esav Soinas Yankov, the Sinah they had, and what do they go against? They go against the Besmedrash, they go against Torah. And you just what I keep mentioning about building back the shuls and Lud. I mean the Rebbeinu Shem yard the sinner, and the reason the Rebbeinu Shem made the sinner, it comes from the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shem doesn't want us to assimilate with the Goyim. The Rebbeinu Shem wants us to remember that we're different than them, and everything that happens is. But what is our koyach? Our koyach is Torah and Tilim. The Rebbe Melech's yortzeit is on Shavuos, and the Rebbe Melech that his Tilim should be just like Nagoim V'Holos. Torah is the weapon that we have against all the nations. Torah is the weapon. The Chazanish at that time spoke to Ben Gurion and said, if you want the wheels to turn the army, the wheels are Torah. If you don't have the yeshivas, you don't have that, you have nothing. The yeshivas, the Torah, you don't know who wins the war. When we sit and learn tonight, we're winning the war against the Sainim that we have. We're helping all those who are fighting. We're helping by us going and learning Torah and davening properly and doing the Yontiv of Shavuos is a Yontiv of this is the whole creation. This is the whole Bria. When it says Breishis Bara, the Bria really became fulfilled on the day of Matan Torah. So Breishis Bara ended by that day of Matan Torah. There's no special date. This is the Breishis Bara because this is the Brias Oilam. To remember that this is the Brias Oilam and the Yontiv of what's the mitzvah of the Yontiv of Shavuos is Hoidah, to thank the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's Hakiva spoke about Thanksgiving. The biggest Thanksgiving is Shavuos. Shavuos Hakol Moedim Batzeres Dabinanam Lachem. The Gemara brings down there's machlokes in every Yontiv. If you have Kulei Lachem Kul Hashem Hatzi. Everyone is moided that on Shavuos you have to have lechem, you have to have a lechem. Sheboy nitna Torah Yisrael. It's a yom that Torah was given. So Rashi explains it's a day that we have to celebrate. If you really appreciate something, then you celebrate it. If you really care about something, you celebrate it. If you're really happy, and you're happy with Rabbi Shem gave us the Torah, and Tachsa Shaloi Vatashkacha BSIMCHA The mitzvah of showing the Rebbeinu Shem, we're so happy you gave us the Torah. Even though with Torah came sinner. Even though with Torah came all the problems we have. But there's nothing without Torah, there's no life. And so the Yontiv of Shavuos doesn't have any other things. It's a mitzvah of Haidor. That's the mitzvah of Yontiv. And the mitzvah, that's why some people eat milchiks and some people even tonight already in the Oibel and the German community said they eat milchiks the first night. Because meat we eat every Yontiv. But to show that this Yontiv is different than other Yom Tovim, You do something different. You do something different. This is not a regular yontif. It's the yontif of the recreation of the world, of the purpose of the world. It's the yontif that we have to remember when the Rebbeinu Shalom was meyachad with us. It's the yontif Yom Simchaseinu, Yom Chasanosoi. It's the day that we celebrate, and that's what this yontif is. A whole yontif has to go around. Baruch Elokeinu shebaranu chavoidai, Baruch Hashabacha banu v'nosam l'astarosai, Ata b'chatonu mikol amim. To remember how chosen we are, and how are we chosen with Torah. There's nothing greater than the Torah that we have. That's what we're chosen for. The Torah, keeping the Torah, doing the mitzvahs, and that's what Shavuos is all about. Shavuos is a time where we show that we are Mekabel Torah, that we accept what Rabbi Shem gave. Once there was, a few people sitting around, and when is exactly the Zman of the Torah? Is it middle at night? Is it Laisa Shachar? Is it by the laning with the Lena Seres Adibras? When is the time? So Gadol went by and said, you know when it is? When you are Mekabel the Torah. When you are Mekabel, you take upon yourself to, and how you Mekabel Torah, you show the Simcha. And tells, we used to dance on Shavuos, even more lebedik than a Shavuos Torah. Because you're showing that you're Mekabel Torah. You're showing that you are so happy with the Torah. If you don't do Torah with Simcha, it means you're not happy with it. The mitzvah of the Yontif of Shavuos is to show how the Haidah, thanking Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm so happy. And how are you happy? You're happy where you also take other people in with you. And like the Chumsoifa says, the mitzvah of the Yontif of Shavuos is to do tzedakah and chesed, because in Parashas Emor, right after Shavuos, it says the mitzvah of tzedakah, to help others, to do for others. And so this is we're going through times, the pandemic, and now after the pandemic, you have the Meron Ma'aser, and now you have in Eretz Yisrael, the war, mamish, and the sinner that you see wherever you go, even here in America, the sinner you have, the goyim have the sinner, and we have to remember that sinner is something the Rebbeinu wants us to have, but we have to celebrate. When we celebrate the Torah and we celebrate saying Tillim, so the Yontif of Shavuos, we should say more Tillim because it's the time that the Melech was Masakin Tillim, and that's the time to say a little more Tillim. And Eile Berecha Be'eile Basusim, V'nachnu V'Shem Elokeinu. They go with their armies, but we go with Torah. Torah is what makes our armies win. Torah makes Klal Yisrael win. Torah and Tillim together, Torah and Tillim go together, Tefillah and Torah Tillim. So Rabbi should help that the schus of all of us showing the Simchas HaTorah, showing how happy we are. A whole day should go around with a smile. Look, we are Yidden who have Torah. We are different. The Shabbacha Banu. We are Am HaTorah. We are the people who have Torah and Tefillah and Tillim. We have that, and there's nothing greater, and there's no other purpose in life. That's the biggest purpose in life. And so it's the purpose of having the Zoom and everything right before Yontif is to bring us into understand how beautiful this Yontif is, how beautiful the Yontif of Shavuos is. It's the most beautiful. That's why you have flowers, make everything happy. Flowers are things that people see. Flowers make them happy. Plants and things that make them happy. It's supposed to always be besimcha, constantly be besimcha. Not even a second of atzvus. Like the Baron Kalina said, was simcha can bringen, can kein mitzvah nicht bringen. Was atzvus can bringen, can kein aveira nicht bringen. To be always be happy, even if you hear things that don't sound so good, but know that won't help you. Seeing, crying won't help you. It's like one of the fathers from the 45 from Iran. I mean, it's unbelievable. The Kiddush Hashem he made, a Friar Yid came there and said he couldn't believe how and it was the biggest Kiddush Hashem to show what a Haredi Jew is, how the father is sitting there, instead of sitting and crying, he's giving us chizuk. He's speaking, he's praising Hashem. He's praising what Rabbi Shem, because that's Erel Chid understands that we have to cry and we have to feel bad and we have to help them do everything, but we have to know that the biggest weapon against everything is simcha, and the simcha Torah brings Torah misameach. Torah is misameach, and learn Torah b'simcha. I just heard from Beryl Pravatsky Shlita. He said, "Zamazen de nismach kolonu, but there was some lamazen de simcha was had einah. When Magidei Shiur, and anyone ever hears of Daniel or Reb Yosy giving a shiur, then the simcha of Torah, the simcha of like a yom matanosa, a yom, the day that Torah was given with the biggest simcha. Tonight the minhag is that we don't start the kiddush till too late, and we don't have Ma'ariv too late, because we have to have Tmimis. Tmimis means we have to be ready to be Makabel Torah. We have to, the Torah is there always for anyone, like the Rambam says, for anyone to take. We have to be ready to take it. And we're only ready if we have the 49 full days of doing Kabbalah, Achona. The Rabbi should help that we should be able to be Mesameach in this Torah, through the Simchas HaTorah, through Torah and through Tilim. Rabbi should help that all our enemies should, Aveira should help that we should be Zoicha to see that this Yontif should be a Yontif of Kibbutz Goliath, of Klal Yisrael. Zoicha that everyone, all the Torahs should end in Klal Yisrael in the world. Zoicha to see the Gula b'Meher b'Yameinu. All of you, I wish you all have a Lebedige Yontif, a Freiliche Yontif, a Gesente Yontif, and together with all of you, we should dance. Keneged Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'Meher b'Yameinu. Amen.
Right. Good job.
Jonathan, Yashikoyach Ruf, Yashikoyach.
Thank you, everyone.
The only female.
Good Yontif, everyone. Good Yontif.
Good job. I want to, of course, thank the Rav for beautiful words, and again, making it manageable to get into Yontiv in the right frame of mind. I want to thank Reb Daniel for being on, and Yossi, and the sponsor of Dovid, KLEINERS, Lilu Nishmas, Mrs. Grubner, Leah Sholem. We have one more part to leave off. You know, AB hasn't really come on in Zoom, but his work speaks for him. This is this song, Lulay Sirascha. Most of you are familiar with it. It was written in 1990 for, I think, the 12th Siyum Hashas or the 11th Siyum Hashas. This has been redone by Yeshivas Darchei Torah in New York. I think you will all enjoy it, and it really captures what the mitzvahs Hayom is, as the Rav says, to be simcha from the Torah. Please enjoy.
Hey, look at this. It really pays, darling. Pinch out for a bigger view.
Sounds like Phyllis.
Oi, whoops. Phyllis.
He sits late at night in the soft candlelight as it casts its warm glow on the pages. And the words that he sees are the secret, the key that has kept us alive through the ages.
Why does he cherish the wisdom of old and delight in his study each day? He knows only Torah can nourish his soul. Come listen and hear what he says.
Vos of Beis Hillel, vos make Beis Shammai. Rav of Marvos, obstinate the Avaya.
Torah, without you, I surely would die. Lulay Sirascha PProduced.
Vos kler dravir, you know, vos trach dravashi. Shat can be treffing in Rashi.
Torah, you've given my spirit to me. Keep on, peace on me.
And now we remain with our faith yet sustained by our passion and love for this treasure. It's a link with Sinai and our Father on high, so we'll keep on learning forever.
Why does he cherish the wisdom of old and delight in his study each day? He knows only Torah can nourish his soul. Come listen and hear what he says.
you see Abi on Shabbos, make sure you're giving me a Shir Koyach.
We understand
Thank
that
you.
wearing a face mask has become part.
Shir Koyach. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a good Yontiv.
Koyach Akiva. Akiva Shkoyach.
Akiva,
Yossi.
Baruch Yossi.
Yossi, your Rosh Hashanah is very positive.